Reporter Chris Hedges tells a story that takes place during the Bosnian War in Gorazda, a Muslim city where the siege was on. The enemy Serbs were lobbing shells every day and shutting off water. Most of the Serbian inhabitants had fled to safer ground, but there was still a Serbian family named Sorak who had decided to stay in their home. Life had already been tough for them. They'd lost a son to the war. He'd been taken off for questioning by government officials and had never returned. Recently, Muslim gangs had started patrolling the city looking for any Serbs who were left. And at this worst of all times, their widowed daughter-in-law gave birth to a baby. Between the shelling and food scarcity, the young mother was unable to nurse. All they had to give the baby was tea, and after several days, the baby was dying. On the edge of town, there was a pasture that was owned by a man named Fadil Fejvik, who was a Muslim farmer. Every day just before dawn, Fadil went out to the pasture to milk his one cow. He went out in the darkness to stay out of sight of the Serbian snipers. On the 5th day after the baby's birth, just before the sun rose, the Serbian grandmother, Mrs. Sorak, heard someone at the door. In trepidation and remembering they had lost a son in just this way, she opened the door, and there stood the Muslim farmer, Fadil, holding in his hands half a liter of milk. He came back the next day, and the next. His neighbors insulted him for his kindness. Let the Chetnik children die, they said. But for 242 days, till the Sorak family could finally flee to Serbia, Fadil brought the milk. The baby lived. Chris Hedges reports the Serbian couple, now safely in Serbia, they grieve daily for their son. And honestly, they can't quite forgive. And yet, they also can't listen to their neighbors when their neighbors write off all Muslims as evil and enemy and other. They tell about Fadil and the gift of life he gave at the risk of his own in the midst of conflict, a gift that recognized that they are already one human family, even though their armies didn't know it, even though their neighbors didn't know it. In our one human family, in our churches even, layers of division have accumulated year after year on top of God's gift of unity. We have much to repair and much to forgive. The gift of unity is still one we have to fully receive and begin to open. But what if we would just do it? What if we would begin to receive the gift, already begin it, and open it together? What if we learn to bring out the best in each other? It will transform us because it is of God.